At our gender reveal party, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up and announced, "Since you clearly won't be a suitable mother, we've decided to take custody of the baby even before it's born." My husband looked absolutely shocked, because he knew something they did. When I pulled out the legal documents, the entire room went silent. When Mark and I planned this gender reveal party for our first child, we imagined a warm, joyful celebration with our closest family and friends. We rented a cozy community hall in our Austin, Texas neighborhood, and decorated it with pink and blue balloons, streamers, and a large banner that read, "Boy or Girl." In the center of the room stood a cake, the inside of which held the surprise, the gender of our baby. The room buzzed with laughter and excitement as guests arrived, making playful guesses about whether we were expecting a boy or a girl. Mark's parents, Patricia and Robert, showed up together. Patricia, my mother-in-law, had always been rather critical of me, but nothing could have prepared me for what was about to happen. When the time finally came to cut the cake, Mark and I stood side by side, hands on the knife, ready to make the first slice. Just as we were about to cut, Patricia stood up, loudly cleared her throat, and immediately drew the room's attention. She stepped forward with a serious expression and began to speak. "Before you cut that cake, I have something important to say." I glanced at Mark, confused, and saw that he was just as puzzled. Patricia continued, "Since you won't be a fit mother, we've decided it would be best for us to take custody of the baby before it's even born." A shocked gasp echoed through the room. My heart was pounding, tears stung my eyes, but I held them back. I refused to let her see me break. Mark's face flushed red with anger. "Mom, what are you talking about?" he demanded, his voice trembling slightly. Patricia crossed her arms and, with complete calm, replied, "We've spoken to a lawyer. Given your wife's background and choices, we believe it would be in the child's best interest if we assumed custody." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Patricia had always questioned my career, doubted my decisions, and criticized my relationship with Mark, but to stand there and declare this in front of everyone was beyond anything I imagined. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. "It's funny you bring up legal matters, Patricia," I said, keeping my voice steady, "because we've consulted a lawyer too." For the first time, her confidence seemed to waver. "What do you mean?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. I opened the folder and held up the top document. "This is a restraining order," I announced calmly. "Effective immediately, you are to have no contact with me or my child, before or after the birth." The room fell into complete silence. Patricia opened her mouth, searching for words but finding none. Mark stepped forward, his voice firm and clear. "Mom, your behavior has crossed the line for far too long. We've made the decision to protect our family from this toxicity." Her face twisted with frustration. "You can't do this," she snapped. "I'm the grandmother, and I'm the mother," I answered quietly. "I will do whatever it takes to protect my child." With that, Mark and I turned back to the cake. Taking a deep breath, we sliced into it, and there it was, pink frost. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but this time they weren't from pain or shock, they were tears of pure happiness. We were having a baby girl. The room, once tense and silent, filled with applause and cheers. The heavy atmosphere lifted in an instant. Patricia stood frozen for a moment, then suddenly turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. In the weeks that followed, Patricia did attempt to challenge the restraining order, but her case held no real strength. Mark and I, on the other hand, stayed focused on the most important thing, preparing for the arrival of our daughter. We surrounded ourselves with caring friends and family who offered nothing but love and support. That experience taught us something truly valuable, the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for the well-being of our family. When our daughter Lily was finally born, the moment was overwhelming. A wave of love and fierce protection washed over both of us, and in that moment we knew, no matter what happened, we would always stand united as a family, ready to face anything the world might throw our way. But just when we thought the drama was over, life proved us wrong. 3 days after the party, Mark got a call at work from his father, Robert. Robert told him that Patricia had hired a new lawyer, someone, in his words, much more aggressive. Apparently she was planning to take us to court and attempt to file for custody before the baby was even born. I had no idea that was even possible. Robert made it clear he was only calling to warn us. He said he didn't want to get involved in any of it, but thought we deserved to know what was coming. I appreciated the warning, but hearing it still made me sick to my stomach. This nightmare wasn't over, not yet. And the worst part, I was already 6 months pregnant. At 6 months pregnant, I knew I should have been focused on things like cribs and strollers, not courtrooms. But instead, this had become my reality. Mark was furious. I could see it in his eyes. It took everything in him not to drive straight to his parents' house and let his emotions take over. But instead of making the situation worse, we called our lawyer. She explained that while it's nearly impossible for someone to gain custody of a child before birth, Patricia could still try to challenge me as an unfit mother once the baby arrived. The key would be gathering evidence, and our lawyer warned us, be careful what you say and do. She's likely watching for anything she can twist and use against you. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Patricia holding my baby girl, or worse, a judge telling me I wasn't good enough to be her mother. It didn't feel like a bad dream, it felt like a plan in motion. Weeks passed, and strange things began happening. First, someone anonymously called Child Protective Services, claiming I had been drinking during my pregnancy. The problem, I hadn't touched alcohol in years. CPS came by for a home visit. They were kind, but the experience was beyond humiliating. Not long after, my OBGYN pulled me aside during an appointment. Someone pretending to be me had called their office, trying to access my medical record. The staff had flagged the attempt immediately and denied the request. Mark and I didn't have any hard proof, but deep down, we both knew who was behind it. We stayed calm. We documented everything, screenshots, call logs, email. We even began recording every phone conversation with Patricia, just in case. Our lawyer assured us, we're building a case, just not the one Patricia thinks. Then came the baby shower. I didn't want to invite her, but Mark, still hoping for peace, suggested we try one last time. Maybe if she saw how committed we were to raising our daughter, she'd finally let go of this obsession. So we invited her. Big mistake. Patricia arrived dressed in white, as if she were royalty or something. She carried a massive gift box, and claimed it was a peace offering. Everyone gathered around, curious, as I opened the box. Inside wasn't just a baby outfit. Sitting on top was a court summit. I stared at it, frozen, for what felt like forever. At first I thought it had to be a joke, but it wasn't. Patricia had filed an emergency motion for custody. The court date was set for just 2 weeks away, right around my due date. The entire room went quiet. Some guests awkwardly excused themselves and left, while others stayed behind, trying to comfort me, unsure of what to say. I felt humiliated, violated, and more furious than I had ever been in my entire life. Mark didn't say a word. He simply gathered our things, took my hand, and we quietly walked out. We drove home in complete silence. That night, Mark made a decision. He wanted to talk to his younger brother James. James had stayed neutral throughout the entire ordeal, choosing not to get involved. But Mark knew something I didn't. He believed James was keeping a secret about their mother. Something big. Don't ask questions, Mark told me. Just trust me. 2 days later, James came over. He looked pale, nervous, like the weight of the world was sitting on his shoulders. He sat down on our couch, hesitated, and then said, I never wanted to do this to Mom, but she's gone too far. And then he handed Mark a flash drive. What we heard when we played it made my blood run cold. The recordings were real conversations, audio clips of Patricia speaking to someone, likely a friend or maybe even her lawyer. She wasn't just venting, she was outlining her entire plan. She said things like, once I have the baby, I'll move out of state. She won't fight back, she's too weak. If I have to bend the truth, I'll do it. It's for the baby. I'll manipulate, I'll vanish, whatever it takes. Mark and I sat there in complete silence, listening to every word. I cried, but not from sadness, from pure rage. That same night we handed everything over to our lawyer. After listening to the recordings, her response was short but powerful. This changes everything. But what Patricia didn't know was that Mark had already started working on something of his own, something that would completely shift the direction of this entire case. Just when we felt like we were finally getting control, another surprise landed on our doorstep. A letter, this time from Patricia's lawyer. But it wasn't about custody anymore. Now she was suing me for defamation. It wasn't just an empty threat. The lawsuit was real. Patricia's lawyer argued that my accusations of emotional manipulation and the restraining order had harmed her reputation in the community and affected her mental health. Honestly, I almost laughed when I read it. I stared at the letter in disbelief. The same woman who had tried to take my unborn child was now painting herself as the victim. Our lawyer, however, wasn't surprised. "This is just a tactic," she explained calmly. "They want to distract you, pressure you, wear you down before the custody hearing. Don't let them." So we stayed focused. Or at least we tried to. But just when we thought things couldn't get any stranger, they did. One evening, Mark came home later than usual. He was holding a yellow envelope. No return address, no sender name. It had been hand-delivered to his office and left at the front desk. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of me, taken from across the street. I was sitting on our front porch, a glass of water in one hand, the other resting on my pregnant belly. Mark flipped the photo over, and on the back there was just one word: unfit. We immediately called the police. They opened an investigation, but with no fingerprints, no witnesses, and no clear leads, there wasn't much they could do. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing around the house, constantly glancing out the windows, feeling like someone was out there, watching, waiting for me to make a mistake, to catch me doing something they could twist into proof that I wasn't fit to be a mother. It started messing with my head. I questioned everything. Should I have gone back to work during my second trimester? Was all this stress affecting the baby? Was I just being paranoid? Mark could see the toll it was taking on me. That night, he started sleeping by the front door, baseball bat within reach, just in case. 2 days later, James called again. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You need to know something," he said. "Mom's not doing this alone." I froze. "What do you mean? Someone's helping her?" I asked. James's voice was quiet but steady. "She's got someone feeding her info. About you, about your schedule." My heart sank. "Who?" I whispered. There was a pause. And then he said it. "Michelle." I thought he was joking. Michelle had been my best friend since college. My maid of honor. She helped me plan the gender reveal. She was the one who told me, "Don't worry, Patricia's just being dramatic. This will all blow over." But none of it was an act. James told us the truth. Michelle had been meeting Patricia in secret, feeding her information, sharing things I had said in private, even helping her build a case against me. And the worst part, she wasn't just doing it for loyalty. She was doing it for money. Patricia had been paying her. I didn't even cry. I felt cold, like betrayal had found a new level. We confronted Michelle. She denied it at first, swore up and down that James was lying. But then Mark showed her the bank statement, the same transaction mentioned in one of the audio clips James gave us. That's when she broke. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said, crying. "I thought she just wanted updates. Updates. On my life." Mark didn't raise his voice. He just told her to leave, and never come back. Our lawyer added the betrayal to the case file. She said it would crush Patricia's credibility in court. But the nightmare wasn't over. A week before my due date, I woke up to find my car window shattered. Nothing was stolen, but there, placed neatly on the driver's seat, was a baby blanket. The same one Patricia had gifted me early in the pregnancy. We called the police again. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no solid proof. That day, I didn't wait. I went straight to family court and filed for an emergency hearing. Our lawyer submitted everything: the photos, the threats, the audio clips, the betrayal, the surveillance, everything. The judge approved it. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days after my due date. The timing couldn't have been worse. But fate had other plans. I went into labor early. My water broke at 1:42 a.m. 3 days before the hearing. Mark rushed me to the hospital in a total panic. And that's when Patricia showed up. She wasn't on the approved visitor list. We don't know if Michelle tipped her off, or if she followed us. But there she was, standing in the hallway, demanding to be let into the room. Security had to escort her out, but not before she shouted, "You'll never keep her from me. She's mine too." Mark nearly put a hole in the wall from how angry he was. The hospital immediately tightened security around our room, and the next morning, I delivered our daughter, healthy, beautiful, 7 pounds, 6 ounces. We named her Ivy. But the joy didn't last long. I held my baby girl for the first time. But as I gazed at Ivy, Mark got a call from our lawyer. Patricia had filed a temporary emergency guardianship request with the court. While I was still recovering, she was trying to have the baby removed from the hospital and placed in her care. That was the final straw. Our lawyer told us, "This next hearing is war." Just 48 hours after giving birth, I was preparing to testify in court, baby Ivy in my arms. The morning of the hearing, I barely slept. Ivy was only 2 days old, and my body ached in ways I couldn't explain. But I wasn't going to sit this one out. Not after everything Patricia had done. I walked into that courthouse with Mark by my side, Ivy wrapped against my chest. Patricia was already there. She was wearing pearls, smiling like she was some kind of saint. Her lawyer sat next to her, a tall man in a suit that was way too expensive for someone representing this kind of crazy. The judge, a serious woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the files before speaking. Our lawyer had submitted over 100 pages of evidence, the photos, the Michelle betrayal, the audio clips, everything. The courtroom was dead silent. Patricia's lawyer went first. He rambled on about concerns for the child's mental health, my instability as a mother, pure garbage. Then it was our turn. Our lawyer started slow, calm, clear, focused. Then came the recordings. The room shifted. The judge leaned forward. People in the back row started whispering. Next came the photo, the one with the word unfit, scrawled across the back. And then the Michelle betrayal. We handed over the transcript of Michelle's confession, the payments, the messages, her signature on the withdrawal slips from Patricia's account. Patricia's smile slowly faded. She interrupted the judge. "This is a setup. They're trying to make me look like a monster." The judge held up her hand. "Enough." She turned to Patricia directly. "You stalked a pregnant woman. You filed fraudulent reports. You tried to access confidential medical records. You sent threats. You paid someone to spy on them. And now you're trying to take her newborn child under false pretenses. Is that about right?" Patricia didn't answer. She just stared at her lawyer like she was waiting for him to save her. He didn't move. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Bell," she said, "would you like to make a statement?" I nodded and stood up slowly, holding Ivy tighter. I looked straight at Patricia. "You hate me because I took your son," I said. "You think that gives you the right to ruin my life. But this child isn't yours. You will never see her. Not now. Not ever. You made sure of." Mark grabbed my hand. The judge nodded once. Then came her final words. "Patricia Bell, I am granting a permanent restraining order against you. You are not to contact, approach or be within 1,000 feet of this child, or her parents ever again. Your petition for custody is denied. Your defamation suit is dismissed with prejudice. And you're fined for wasting this court's time." Boom. It was over. But here's the kicker. As we walked out of the courtroom, Patricia lost it completely. She screamed about family and blood rights, then lunged forward and got tackled by a bailiff. She ended up in jail for assaulting a court officer. That was the last time we saw her. Months later, Michelle tried to reach out. She said she wanted to apologize, that she didn't realize how deep she'd gotten into it, wanted to start over. I never replied. She made her choice. So did Patricia. As for me, I wasn't perfect either. I should have seen the signs earlier. I should have listened to my gut and cut Patricia off before things got this far. I ignored the red flags, kept hoping things would get better, but they didn't. They got worse. So when I finally stood up for myself, I made sure there was no going back. Now Ivy is 9 months old. She's healthy, laughs all the time, and doesn't know a thing about what her grandmother tried to do, and she never will. Not on my watch.